theyeshiva.net.
Okay, Tayir Yidden. The last leg of the Maamar, the last section, page Tez Zayin, the last paragraph. If I give a summation, it's going to be another few shiurim, so I'm going to rely on everybody's memory. And if you don't have the memory, so you'll chazer, hopefully. V'lachein, and thus, meramzim zeh b'chol shana v'shana. Everything that has been discussed till now, the long introduction about how the Jewish calendar works, from the 3 weeks, Tisha B'Av, the 7 weeks, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Shmini Atzeres, Simchas Torah. And then the long introduction about understanding the conversation between Moshe and Hashem about exile, his questions and the answers. Following a long introduction of the metaphor, the long metaphor of the student and the teacher, the ultimate student and the ultimate teacher, following the long explanation about how that's reflected, the relationship between Hashem and the Jewish people in the churban of in Galus Mitzrayim, Bris Ben Absarim, Galus Mitzrayim, Matan Torah, Asarim Amaris, Aseres Hadibris, following the explanation how that's also true for the future Geula and the present Galus, which is why Moshiach is born by the churban. So after all of that, he says, all of this, in a micro level, gets intimated in the annual calendar. Meaning, bifrat, chayis al hashana bifrat, yesh boi mikol ma sheyesh bechlal b'shit alfei shnin da hayalma. The way the Jewish calendar works is that every year is a microcosm of all of history. That's how our calendar works. It's a fascinating idea. In other words, every year basically is all of history. Obviously, in a more specific, in a more broken down way. You have what's called klal and you have what's prat. And as we say, ein bechlal elamasha befrat, ein befrat elamasha bechlal. So the klal is, there's the klal of history. The Gemara says, shit al fishnin da hava alma. Masechta Rosh Hashanah Lamed Aleph, the world is 6,000 years. But every Rosh Hashanah we say is a new year. And what it means is a new year, it's not just you need a new year for a break, but the idea is that the chiyus of that year gets renewed. It's called Rosh, Al Balatanya says, Rosh Hashanah is called Rosh, not Tchilas. It should have been called the beginning of the year. Rosh Hashanah means the head of the year. So we see it as a euphemism. The head of a table, you're sitting at the head of the table. The table doesn't have a head. The table doesn't have,
History repeats itself.
Yeah. Well, that's sometimes in a more, sometimes in a cynical way. But here the idea is that every Rosh Hashanah is called the head, because the function of the head is that it's the central nervous system. From the brain, all of the limbs and organs can receive their vitality. They're vivified through the brain, and the brain leads them and guides them and mentors them in a very general and a very specific way. That's Rosh Hashanah. So every year, there's like the energy of that year that's packaged up in the brain. And we know that what happens in the brain, it's not happening in the brain, it's affecting literally every part of the brain. Because the brain has, as we know today, especially regions that are connected. There's not one detail in the organism that cannot be found somewhere in the brain. That's the power of Rosh Hashanah. When the new chiyus of the year gets renewed. But it's not just that year. The point is, it's like a package for that year, which has within it a reflection of all of the 6,000 years. And that's why anything that happened in history, from the beginning of creation till the end of creation, happens every single year. Obviously, it may not happen with the same drama and the same revelation and the same fanfare and the same action and the same details, but there's a nekuda of it There's an element of it within a year. So therefore, everything we discussed in the whole Maamar, from Bris Bein Absarim, from creation, all the way to Geula, exists in every year in the Jewish calendar. V'lachein, b'chol Pesach yesh b'chinas Yitzias Mitzrayim. Every Pesach, you have a shtikl Yitzias Mitzrayim. What's the connection? Yitzias Mitzrayim happened more than 3,330 years ago. Exactly 3,331 years ago, to be exact. 2,448. 3,331. So what are you celebrating? So you're going to say, well, it's nostalgia, it's memories. That's how a culture and a nation lives. It lives with memories. He says, but it's much deeper than that. Yesh b'chinas Yitzias Mitzrayim. There is something in the energy of that time of the year that captures the energy that was there the first time. V'chein b'chol regel ki yadua. And the same is true with every single festival. This is an example of Pesach, but it's true of every festival. There's something of the energy in the year. V'yesh gam ken b'chol shana me'ein de la'asid. There's a word from the Rabbi Yitzchak of Barditchev in his Sefer Kedushas Levi on Chanukah. The Gemara says in Masechta Shabbos of Chaf Aleph that when Chanukah happened, so the oil burned for 8 days. The Gemara says, L'shana haba kavum. The next year, they turned it into the Chanukah holiday. Asked Rabbi Yitzchak of Barditchev, why didn't they make the holiday that year? When the miracle was complete, to say, wow, this should be a Yom Tov. It says L'shana haba, the next year. So if you want, you could kvetch al pi pshat, that they could have made the holiday that year, but it was irrelevant already. In other words, it was for next year. They made it that year, but you're only going to celebrate it next year because they had to wait till it was over. And after Chanukah, but that's not what the Gemara says. The Gemara says, L'shana haba kavum. The next year they established it. So the Barditchev said that sometimes you have events that happen. They happen. They had to see if the same energy is going to be available next year. Because in Yiddishkeit, time is like, in your metaphor, it's circular. Time is not just linear. It happened, let's move on. Of course, there's the element of progress and moving on, but there's also an element of coming back to that same point. L'shana haba, the next year, Chavim, they felt the same energy of last year. Chanukah is here. And this was a chiddush by Chanukah, because other holidays, till then, besides Purim, were biblical holidays. Even Purim was established by prophets. But this is the first holiday in Judaism that was not established in Chumash or in Tanakh. In Purim, you have a Megillah. Chanukah is not in Tanakh. It was completely a rabbinic institution, a mitzvah medivrei sefer. So L'shana haba, they couldn't make the Yom Tov yet. They don't know. God didn't say to make the Yom Tov. They said to make the Yom Tov. L'shana haba, the next year, Kavum, they could establish it. It's a word from the Barditchev. V'yesh gam ken, Well, we'll soon see what that means. In other words, we're going to get to that. V'yesh gam ken b'chol shana me'ein de la'asid. It's not just Jewish history till the Geula. In every year, you also have the elements of the future, of the Geula. Shu Shmini Atzeres v'Simchas Torah. Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah represents the Moshiach state of Jewish history. K'mavur b'soif Maamar v'his gadelti. As explained in the end of another Maamar that he said, which we never found. V'hilchach, based on this, we now go back to the beginning of the Maamar, as in a circle. Maftirin gimel de puranasa. That's why we have the Haftarah before Tisha B'Av, 3 weeks, known as the 3 weeks, called gimel de puranasa, the 3 Haftarahs of Puranias, which means of rebuke, of challenge, of difficult time. V'hu min Yud Zayin b'Tammuz. It begins from the 17th of Tammuz. The first Haftarah is the Shabbos afterwards. And then you have the second Shabbos and you have the third Shabbos. Those are the 3 Haftarahs of Puranias. The last one is Chazon Yeshayahu, and that's the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av. Here, there is the element of what happened by the Churban, the 3 weeks that preceded the Churban, the breaching of the Jerusalem walls, and then the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. But remember that the story of Yud Zayin b'Tammuz starts much earlier. The Mishnah says in Maseches Tainis that 5 things happen on Shivasa b'Tammuz. The first thing is Nishtabru HaLuchos. It's the day that the Luchos broke. So he says, "V'hu minyan zayin b'tammuz, shehu shviras luchos harishonos." That's the time the first luchos break. Ad Yom Kippur shel matan Torah shel luchos achronos. There's a period that will continue till Yom Kippur, when they had a second matan Torah, when Hashem gave the second tablets, which is also described this week in Parshas Eikev. So Yud Zayin b'Tammuz, the 17th of Tammuz, Moshe comes down from the mountain after 40 days on the mountain. There was, of course, Matan Torah on the 6th day of Sivan or the 7th day of Sivan. Then he goes up onto the mountain. He receives the entire Torah. He learns it. He comes down with the tablets of the 10 Commandments. And we all know the story. He smashes them when he sees the golden calf that was created a day before, Tez Zayin Tammuz. This is Yud Zayin Tammuz. Rashi makes the calculations to show how it works a few times in Chumash, including this week, Eikev, but also Parshas Kisisa. And then Moshe goes up the next day on the mountain. He pleads for 40 days. Those 40 days finish with the end of the month of Av, Chavtes Av. Chavtes Av, there is forgiveness. And Hashem tells him, I want you to carve out 2 new tablets in lieu of the first ones which you broke, Asher Shabarta, which you broke, and I will inscribe again the 10 Commandments. Moshe goes up Rosh Chodesh Elul, and he's there for a third set of 40 days. Those are called Yemei Ratzon, days of will, of rebirth of the relationship. And he comes down on Yom Kippur with the second tablets. That's when he hears the message of Salachti. I have atoned, Salachti Kidvarecha, and he comes down with the second Luchos. The Gemara says in Tainus, why is it that they made Yom Kippur the day? It says, why is Yom Kippur such a Yom Tov? It's the Matan Torah of Luchos Achronos. It's the second Matan Torah. It's like, so to speak, the second marriage, or it wasn't a second marriage, same wife, but a second marriage, in the sense that the first one broke, and the second one, the second Luchos, were given on Yom Kippur. So there's a period in the calendar that starts Shavasa B'Tammuz, when the first Luchos broke, and Yom Kippur, when the second Luchos were given. Now, how do we understand this usually? We understand the Jews were bad boys, and they misbehaved, and they made a golden calf, and Moshe saw it, and he got upset, and he threw the Luchos down, and that was it. And God said, okay, I had enough with them. There's no hope for this marriage. And Moshe fights and begs and pleads. Kavayachal, he confronts Hashem, and he says, erase me from the Sefer Torah if you don't forgive them. And finally, Hashem acquiesces, he concedes, and he says, okay, we'll try this one more time. Let's do a second set of Luchos. And the second set of Luchos ultimately is given to Yom Kippur. And that's why from Elul till Yom Kippur, those are 40 days of known as the days of compassion, the days of Ratzon. It begins with Chodesh Elul, and it culminates with Yom Kippur, Matan Torah of Luchos Achronos. But after everything we learned, and that's all true, of course, but after everything we learned, there's also something deeper going on. What is it? Ki mashe nishbiru Luchos harishonos. The reason the first Luchos were broken, hu mitzad, it was time for a higher shear. It was time for the second shear. Hu mitzad shenis oirer b'makar b'chinas Luchos achronos. The first Luchos broke because in the source of all life, in the source of all the worlds, in the source of Torah, Kavayachal and Hashem, and the teacher, something new emerged. Something new was nisoirer. What? Luchos achronos. The second Luchos, the later Luchos, Shubchinas Yoisa Gavoya, which in a way is much deeper. It's a new shear. Why? Ki Luchos harishonos u Matan Torah l'tzadikim. Luchos harishonos is the Matan Torah for tzadikim. The Jews were in a state of tzadikim; they were righteous. But for Luchos achronos u b'chinas Matan Torah l'balei tshuva. The Luchos achronos is the Matan Torah for Bal Tshuva, and the Matan Torah for Bal Tshuva is a whole different Matan Torah. Of course, there was an advantage in the first Luchos that the second Luchos didn't have. The first Luchos were completely holy. It says it clearly in the Pasuk. The first Luchos were created by heaven. Haluchos Maisa Lekim Hema. Hashem didn't only write, he didn't only engrave the words in the Luchos. He actually made the Luchos. The Mishnah says it's Asara Dvarim that was created Friday, the first Friday, Ben Hashmashos. The Luchos are considered a creation min Hashemayim. The second Luchos, he says, Moshe found, Rashi says in Parshas Kisisa, that Moshe found in his tent sapphire, right? And he chiseled. What's the word? He carved it. I guess honed. He carved it out into the luchos, into tablets, and he brought that up to Hashem, who engraved them with the Ten Commandments. In that sense, the first luchos have a certain light and a certain sanctity that the second luchos don't have. There's always the advantage of the first shiur. The first shiur is straightforward. It's sacred, it's good. But the second luchos have something that the first luchos don't have. And that's called the Matan Torah for the Baal Tshuva. Yeah. Luchos Shniyos, the Jews were transformed from tzaddikim into Balei Tshuva. Right. Yeah, because as we said yesterday, that till Moshiach comes, the Yechidah Shebenefesh remains in the core of the soul, but it's not always manifested in the body. Right. Yeah. Realigning yourself with yourself. So there was a transformation from the state of tzaddik to the state of Baal Tshuva. That's why the first luchos were given with koilos and brokim. Koilos are thunders, lightning. Because the first luchos represent the avodah of tzaddikim, which is revealed. The Jews then were tzaddikim. Kemaim, the Gemara says in Shabbos, Kuf Mavav, Paska zu hamasa. The filth that was in the world since the Eitz Hadas ceased by Matan Torah. And this is right after Matan Torah, the first 40 days, they're in a state of tzaddikim. Those are the first luchos. But then the relationship breaks, the relationship fails. And Hashem says, okay, it's not going to work anymore. Obviously, it's not meant to be. This marriage is not going to work. But suddenly Moshe reveals, that there's a deeper relationship. There's a deeper relationship that can't be broken. There's a deeper relationship, if we want to talk about it in terms of personal emotion. There's the child who grows up in a very nurturing and beautiful environment and very innocent. Everything is so innocent and sacred and pure. And sometimes some people are lucky to step into such a world. That's the world they know. A world of love, a world of nurture, a world of innocence, a world of purity, a world in which you're protected and you're safe. And listen, that's what we all hope for our children. That's what we try to do. But we also know that the world doesn't always respond that way. Some experience a very different type of life. And there are the voices that say, that's it, you could never have that innocence, you could never have that joy or that confidence or that purity because of abuse, or because of pain, or because of trauma, or because of other tremendous distractions or toxic influences, willingly or unwillingly, maliciously or not maliciously. And on some level you say, that's it. There's some people give up hope. They don't even have hope for life anymore. But what's the truth? The truth is that at this point, the person is challenged to be able to go much, much deeper and to be able to find a wholeness that is deeper than all of the brokenness and to be able to bring it out. That's what tshuva means. Tshuva is that ability that after failure to be able to experience rebirth, to be able to not allow the negative energy, the darkness to take you down, but on the contrary, for it to become a springboard for renewal and rebirth. There is a depth to that is unparalleled, that is unprecedented. Because whenever you take negative energy and you convert it into positive energy, the Yisrin ha'er min ha'choshech, it's a different level of light. It's a different level of awareness. Anybody sitting here who had to deal and confront trauma of any level, or just a very deep challenge, and you had to work that through and not allow it to demoralize you or throw you into despair or melancholy or depression or define your life, define your existence, your marriage, your relationships, but rather be able to say, no, I can do it. I'm going to renew myself. I'm going to recreate the relationship from the broken places. that relationship is going to be a completely different perspective. Sometimes I meet addicts who are in recovery, and, they destroy their lives. All their luchos broke. Their whole life broke. And some people remain in the brokenness, but those who have the courage to create second luchos, when you have a conversation with them, it's going to be a much more genuine conversation than anyone else in the world. Because they have been through all the lies, they have been through all the deception. The superficiality doesn't work anymore, Good morning, good Shabbos, was machst du, shalom aleichem, aleichem shalom, alles is good, yeah, alles is good. The regular pleasantries, which a lot of people get away with, you just see it in the eyes, it's something else. Within 30 seconds, you can already be talking tachlis. You know what I mean? Huh? That's how real people talk. They don't sit and then for 2 hours you talk about Trump, and then you talk about the weather, then you talk about the weather next week, then you talk about the weather next week, then you want to know where you went on vacation, where you're going on vacation, etc., etc. You go straight to the core, but a person has to be ready for that. Yeah.
So if you send your potential to go much higher, what happens when you don't get this? How do you never get to that level? How do you get to that level? How do you get to that level?
The Gemara says, "B'makom shabali tshuva aimdim," right? Ain't tzaddikim gurim mechalim lamed. So all the tzaddikim, oh really? So let's go sin. Well, it doesn't work that way. In other words, what are you worried about? But they sin, so it's there. Huh? Isn't failure like part of the fabric of existence? Ain't tzaddik baretz ashiyasa tova lo yechta. We all fail. A human being fails. The question is the level of failure. So, al tavyeinu l'dei nisayon. We don't say echta v'ashav. Let me go sin, right? Let me go sin. Let me go become an addict. Let me surrender to alcohol for 6 years, become a meshugana gambler day and night, and then when I go into recovery, I'll appreciate my children. I'll appreciate sobriety. You don't do that. Right? You don't give yourself an illness so that your body should be able to build up immunity, because the illness can also kill you, chas v'shalom. You get my point? You have to be very, very protective. But the point is that in life we go through failure. And I gave specifically a mashal about children, that it's not their choice. Some people experience pain in life. They didn't choose it. And now they're dealing with it. So now they have to ask themselves. We spoke Tisha B'Av about the seed, right? Right? Yosef found himself in a pit and he had to ask himself, was I buried or was I planted? That's a different question. Was I buried or was I planted? It looks the same. You're covered over by the earth and by the gravel. But the question is what you do with it. If I was buried, so that's it. It's death. If I was planted, it means that from this, new produce can come out. Rabbi Isaac, the house was tutzach. Huh? Unbelievable. The reason the first luchos broke is not because the first luchos broke. It's because the second luchos had to be revealed. And that's the whole theme here. The theme of the whole Maamar is that all breakage, all darkness is because a new light started. It doesn't start with the darkness, it starts with the light. It's just, at this point, the light is in the source. It's not in the student, and that's why by the student it's dark. The reason the old light disappeared, the reason the old light was eclipsed, the reason the old light broke, the luchos broke, is why? The same reason there was a Churban Beis HaMikdash, because Moshiach was born. Because Moshiach was born, the new light was born, the light of Geula. So therefore, the old paradigms, the alter shir, the old shir grows silent. So the real deep reason, the depth, the pnimius of Shviras HaLuchos is what? It's already the Luchos Achroinus. But there's a process until it gets revealed. And that's why the first Luchos are revealed, because tzaddikim generally, their avoid is behisgalos. Mashenken Luchos Achroinus haya bechashoy. The second Luchos were silent. There was no drama. No fireworks, no lightning, no thunders, no shofar. Moshe came down. There was no big party. It was Yom Kippur. You couldn't even eat. The first Luchos, it says, Vayechzu es helikim, vayoichlu vayishtu. So given a ganze Verbrengen. It was a big Verbrengen with lightning. God joined it. The second Luchos, Shah still. Nobody even noticed. Moshe came down. Why? Because Sho Inyan Bal Tshuva, Shetzarech Liyas Nesui Pesha Ksui Chata. Because the life of a Bal Tshuva is much more clandestine. It's much more internal. because there's a lot there. There's the appreciation of pain, of failure. Nisui pesha ksui chata. It's a very internal avodah. Shehu haya acher chet ha'egel. After they made the calf, shechazru zu hamasa. The dirt came back, the filth came back. Vayusichel nisbarei de'atayru v'amitzvos. And they needed a new birur. V'yadua shematan Torah lebali tshuva hubchinas madrega gavoya b'yos. The matan Torah for Bal Tshuva is a whole different level. Microcosm the Medrash says, Al pasuk vayagid lecha talumas chachma kekiflayim l'tashiyah. Medrash Rabbi in Parshas Kisisa takes a pasuk in Eikev. Pasuk in Eikev says, he taught you the secrets of wisdom. Kiflayim l'tashiyah. Kiflayim l'tashiyah means double salvation. So the Medrash says as follows. Ilule chata Yisrael hayalem ala mikra v'sefer Yeshua bulvad. V'achshav shechatu harbe hirbelem Torah mitzvahs mikra mishna lachas v'agadas. They would have gotten the first luchas. They would have had Chumash and Yehoshua. But the second luchas, now they have the whole Tanakh and the whole Mishnah and the whole Halach and the whole Agadah. That's called Kiflayim l'Tashiyah, a whole different dimension of Judaism that they wouldn't have gotten from the first luchas. V'agam Rashi Pirish. Rashi says, Kedei liyagon, Kedei shelo yechete niska. Rashi says that the reason he gave them more is they should work, they should be more busy, they should work harder, they should have more yagiyah, they have more to learn. When he saw they're sinning, so therefore he gave them more Torah. It's not like the sinner gained. Aval im kol zem muvan shaluchas achreinis nikra talumas chachma kefayim lekeshia. But the fact is that the luchas achreinis are called talumas chachma, the secret wisdom. It's keflayim l'tashia. Ki yadua hamashal. The metaphor for this is shebekiruv makam maspik ner katan lahayer. Aval lahayer berichuk makam tzarich avuka gedayla. If you want to cast off light on a place that's close, you can light a little candle. But if you need the light to travel long distances, you need an avuka. You need a huge torch or a huge bonfire. It says, "V'lachein l'neshamas hamavuradim sheba madregas tzadikim gemurim hayamaspik luchas harishonis shesharshem mechachma hagluya aval acher achet shechazru zu amasa nasav madregas bali tshuva v'tzarich gavoya yoser lahayer v'mebchinas talumas chachma." Neshamas that are mavurah, neshamas that are tzadikim, their matan Torah is enough if it's first luchas. The first luchas represent chachma hagluya, the revealed wisdom, and that's sufficient to light up these souls. Because when you want to bring light to a place that's close by, you don't need such intense light. You don't need such profound light. A smaller light will suffice. But once the Jewish people ended up spiritually distant so far, now you need a different light to reach them. You need like a nuclear energy. You need a different caliber of light. It's not just in quantity, it's in quality. You need a different type of light that can penetrate, that can reach such depths that no place will be called lost. That as far as they may have roamed, they could still discover their connection and they could still come home. That oir is a different type of oir that you need. That's why the matan Torah for Bal Tshuva, for Ali Tshuva, is a different matan Torah. There's the matan Torah for tzadikim, the matan Torah of Bali Tshuva. Once after the Chet HaEgel, when there was so much brokenness, so now you need a whole new oir. That's the Talumas Chachma, the Keflaim L'Tashiyah. That's why the Medrash says the first Luchas was Mikra and Sefer Yehoshua. 5 books of Moshe and Yehoshua. That would be the end of Yiddishkeit, which is a lot. But the second Luchas, suddenly you have Mikra, Mishnah, Halach. That means all Mishnah, all Gemara, all Medrashim, the whole expanse of Torah came only because of Luchas Achronis. What's the pshat? Really? Chayte Nisker? If they wouldn't have sinned, nobody would be learning Gemara. If they wouldn't have sinned, you would have a Chumash with Sefer Yeshua because they sinned. So Chayte Nisker, that's a funny thing. Yeah. So again, you could look at it from the Nigla, from the Nister, from the revealed point of view. Rashi says, they need to work harder. They need to keep busy. If they don't keep busy, if Mezitz Nishtam Alerent, a lot of things can happen. But what do we also learn from this on a deeper level? That the Luchas Achronis captured and it gave something that the Luchas Rishonos didn't have. And not because the Luchas Rishonos were inferior. They were very, very high, and therefore they had everything in a state of klal. It didn't get to the details of Torah, the Talumas Chachma, because it was the Matan Torah for Tzadikim. And what you give Tzadikim is a smaller light, an amazing light, pristine, sacred, holy, but also a smaller light. But the Baal Tshuva represents the Jew after the Chet HaEgel, after trust has been broken. I mean, think of it even in terms of a marriage. There's a marriage that's going like a honeymoon. It's smooth, it's nice, it's beautiful. It's like tzaddikim, like a young couple. They look like tzaddikim. How does your daughter look this week, huh? Tzaddikim lach. No, it should always stay that way. Yeah? But there's one of I think the Maharshal writes a fascinating thing. He says, why do we break the Luchos? Why do we break the glass under the chuppah? So there's a lot of reasons. The main reason is because of Churban Yerushalayim, right? In Meshkachech Yerushalayim, as we heard the music sing, in Meshkachech Yerushalayim, Tidbak l'shayni l'chikim lo yaskerechi im loyalis Yerushalayim ha'resh simchasi. The Marshal says, I think it's the Marshal, I saw it many years ago. He says that every chuppah is a metaphor for Matan Torah. Because Matan Torah was the chasana, the marriage between Hashem and the Jewish people. And what happened by Matan Torah? The first luchos was smashed. So that's why we smash a glass under a chuppah. Now when you think about that, really? Is that really? That's how the chuppah ends. Trach and Beshreit Mazel Tov. What's the Mazel Tov? So the Mazel Tov is because now we can go dance. But you just broke something. What's the Mazel Tov? It's really something much deeper. There is the element of marriage that is the tzaddikim. Young, innocent, pure people, a couple. Rosy. This is good for Shabbat Brachas. Maybe not. It's good for 10 years after Shabbat Brachas. It's good for the people around this, for some people around this table, maybe. Let them honeymoon for a couple of years. The avodah tzaddikim is the avodah of purity, of a certain innocence. But then we know that sometimes the first luchos broke. Why did they break? They broke because there was a betrayal, because there was alienation. There's no trust anymore. And Hashem said this marriage can't work. It's obviously not meant to be. Forget it. The purpose of the Jewish people in this world is gone. Let's start all over again. I'm going to start with you. But Moshe fights. Moshe will not back down. And this has to come from Moshe. Why couldn't God say, we'll try again? Because this is the concept that it's found within you. There's no relationship at the surface. But Moshe, representing the Jews, says there's something deeper. And when that happens, you're going to need so much of a deeper light, much more maturity, much more conviction, much more depth, and much more courage in order to be able to find the path back. But what happens then is the relationship can't be broken. It becomes, in halacha we have something called shtar sheyatza lav irur. You have a shtar, it's a document, it's legal, but then somebody refutes it and he says it's false. So Bezdin now has to research. And then they give called Kiyum Hashtar. They validate the shtar. This shtar is, nobody could say it's false again. On the original shtar, somebody could say it's a lie. On this new one, after everything, it's not a lie anymore. It really had to be worked through. You had to work through the toxicity, the challenge, the fears, the insecurities. I think Hemingway once said, life breaks all people. And then some of us know how to live in broken places better than others. Yeah. So when the Luchos Rishonos are broken, when they're broken, you have to go work through those broken pieces. When a couple works through the brokenness, now the parts that caused you to drift away become those parts that bring you together. And when that happens, there's nothing more powerful than that. When you could connect in your vulnerability, very practical things is practical, which means there's something that's pulling you away from the other person. When you can connect to the other person in that place, for example, you could talk about the trauma or the fear which caused you to pull away, and you could bring that into the relationship, you can't get a more powerful relationship because you took the broken pieces and you glued them together. You took the brokenness and you brought it back together. But that requires a whole different type of oir, a whole different type of faith and conviction and depth. That's the Matan Torah for Balei Tshuva, is a whole different Matan Torah. That's Talumais Chachma. You got to go to you have to go to your subconscious, your unconscious Chachma. It's the wisdom that has been concealed, because the wisdom that has been revealed has become abused. It's the wisdom that is concealed. The Olam understands what I'm talking about. Because you're looking at me as though a bissel. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. The Kotzker Rebbe said, beautiful, yeah. Yeshikayach Rabbi Yaakov. The Kotzker Rebbe, they say, once said in Yiddish, he said, it was a couple of lines. There's a few versions, but one of the versions is, he said, "Nishta za gleiche Zach wie a krumme Leiter, nishta za krumme Zach wie a gleich Wertel, nishta za schwarze Zach wie weiße Tachrichem, und nishta za ganze Zach wie a zerbrochene Herz." There's how do I translate? There's nothing as straight as a slanted ladder, right? Because that's how you get up, right? Or a crooked ladder. There's nothing as crooked as a gleichwertel, as a snidey, snidey remark of a con artist, The sarcasm. The gleichwertel, it's gleich, it's sophisticated, but it's very crooked. It's exploitive, it's deceptive. You know what I mean, right? The real cynics who know how to get into your kishkis, but they're always statechna, they do it, they're dressed nicely for the occasion. House of Lords, yeah. Et tu brute, then Caesar falls. That's called a gleichwertel. Well, not the gleichwertel, but, your friend, for your best friends. And then he said, there's nothing as black as the white shrouds with which you dress a corpse. And then he said, but there's nothing as whole as a broken heart. There's nothing as whole as a broken heart. And what did he mean by a broken heart? A broken heart really means leiv nishbar. It's the humility, but it's also the brokenness, the cracks that allow the light to come in. That's the key. That's what brokenness really means. Brokenness means that the light comes in. When a keli is not broken, it's also a mechitza. It blocks the light. That's what real brokenness is. Brokenness in Torah and Chassidus is never, let me break you, let me destroy you. That's not leiv nishbar. That's you become a shmata, you become a broken person. That's not leiv nishbar. Leiv nishbar means we want to open the heart. We want to make a crack. That's what it says in Luchos Torah Parshas Tetzavok. Isisna Balatanya says this in the tzitz, a Maamar on the tzitz. Leiv nishbar means you want to let the light come in. That's the shvira. The shviras haluchos of Moshe Rabbeinu was breaking a reality that a whole new light could come in. That's a different light. And that's the light that is experienced from the failure of the Baal Tshuva. V'lachein, in the source, there was already an arousal of the second luchos. We go back to that same thing. The reason the old light left is because the new light was born. That's what caused Shviras Haluchos. So when you look at Shviras Haluchos, on one level, it's the lowest moment. It's the worst moment. And this will, but on the deeper level, what is it? It's the greatest moment. It's back to Tisha B'Av, the day when everything was destroyed and the day that the Gula was born. And both are true. It depends if you're looking at the Nigla or you're looking at the Nister. If you look at it superficially, from the outside in, or you look from the inside out. If you look from the outside in, the shear just stopped. Everything is over. The relationship is gone. The lifeline was cut. If you go from the inside out, what is it? It's the ability to be able to experience the ultimate love, the ultimate light. You could cry from this. This is so moving. It's so emotional. Yeah. I want to give you the second luchos. Yeah.
But the disciples came after they sinned before you broke it?
Well, you have to understand that with spirituality, don't look at it. Time doesn't work like this. The effect can happen before the cause, right? That's what we're learning here. The way the student experiences it is, right? There's light, darkness. There's first light, then there was darkness. Hopefully in the future there'll be light. The way we're understanding it is there's no darkness, there's light, and there's a much deeper light. And because there's a much deeper light, so that translates into a phase of darkness. And Jews always knew this in their bones. Jews, everything that's being articulated here, it's being explained. But this is at the core of Judaism. It's in the Jewish bones. That's why you'll see throughout Jewish history, you'll see a fascinating pattern. You don't have a nation like this, and it shouldn't be taken for granted. After every disaster that Jews experienced, somehow after that, there was an unprecedented level of growth that never existed before. You go through the whole history. It starts with this, the breaking of the first Luchos.
Predates that. Tzimtzum, Shir Sekela.
Avada. But that's before we were in the picture. You're right. You're right. Churban Bayis Rishon. Churban Bayis Sheni. They brought out unprecedented ideas within Judaism. We learn when Mishnayos, Gemara, it was all after Churban Bayis Sheni. It unleashed such a revelation. Churban Bayis Rishon already unleashed a whole new era. The Zugas and the Tanoim. But after Churban Bayis Sheni, the major Torah Sheba'al Peh came out after that. And there's this explosion of ideas and insights in the worst times. It's not like they were sitting near a beach, calm, relaxing, drinking tea and coffee. The Crusades was one of the worst churbanos. Yeah, the era of the Rashi and the whole Balei HaTosfos, the Rishonim, emerged from there. You had the Spanish expulsion was a horrible disaster, and the whole era, the whole Hisgalus of Kabbalah, of the Arizal, and all that, the Ramak, the Arizal, Rabbi Yosef Karo, all the Tzvas, most of them came from Spain. You had Shapsi Tzvi, Tach V'Tat. It was devastating, 1648, 1649. Within a few decades, the Baal Shem Tov and his students revolutionized Eastern Europe. And in the Lithuanian world as well, the Vilna Gaon, his students, the Yeshiva world, etc., etc. Where did this come from? So you could look at it, Jews just knew you gotta go. And it's all true, of course, but there's something much deeper happening. In our bones, in our DNA, there was a code. There was a code, and the code is that the darkness is really a result of the birth of a new light. So the worst thing you could do now is just surrender. You have to open yourself up to the new light. Rabbi Yoshe Ber Soloveitchik, Zechron Levracha, once said, the Gemara says in Menachos, Chavtes, that when Moshe came to the mountain, he saw Hashem drawing the Tagim, the Koitzim, the little Zions on 7 letters of the Sefer Torah, Shin, Ayin, Tes, Nun, Zayin, Gimel, Tzadik, Shatnez, Getz, has those little, what are they called? Little thorns, Tagim, like little lines on top of them. He saw Hashem drawing. So Rabbi Akiva said, who is this for? Like, we barely understand the Sefer Torah. What do we need these shapes? I mean, Moshe asked Hashem. So Hashem said there's going to be a Jew. His name is Akiva ben Yosef. Al kol koitz v'koitz asid lidrish tiletilim shel halachas. On every koitz, on every thorn, it looks like a little thorn, he's going to expound mounds of halacha. So he said homiletically, koitz really doesn't mean a line, it means a thorn. Rabbi Akiva is the one who experienced the thorny perforations of the Roman Empire with its full brutality on his own skin, no less. As the Gemara says in Brachas, what they did to Rabbi Akiva. Al kol koitz v'koitz, every thorn that he experienced, he built tilei tilim shel halachas, mounds and mounds of halacha. He just saw it as a springboard for unprecedented growth. And not because they didn't feel pain. These are not people who were naive, who were in La La Land, who, Tisha B'Av, the Beis Mikdash was destroyed, let's go dance. They were not in La La Land people. It didn't come from naivete, from a lack of appreciation of what a healthy, normal life is. It came from this deep, deep, powerful idea that if there's darkness that descended into your world or into your life, it only means that a new light has been born. Now, I may not appreciate it. I may not want it. I may have wished that the old Shia doesn't get interrupted. Those are all normal emotions, Quantum leaps are not easy in life. But the worst thing I could do now is just say, go back to the old. The old is not here. I open myself up to the new. And you'll see a very interesting thing that becomes clarified now. There's a eulogy for Moshe Rabbeinu at the end of Chumash. 8 psukim, the last 8 psukim of Chumash, the Gemara says in Baba Basra, Moshe wrote with tears, or even Yehoshua wrote them. There's 2 opinions. When you eulogize somebody of the magnitude of Moshe Rabbeinu, what do you talk about? You talk about the greatest moments. What about the catastrophic moments? Either you'll put them in somewhere to mention it, or you won't mention it at all. When you look at the eulogy that Hashem gives for Moshe Rabbeinu, he says, "V'loikam navi keMoshe asher yidai Hashem panim al panim." There was no navi like Moshe. God knew him face to face. Okay, that's pretty powerful. Panim al panim, him and Hashem were, as we would say, buddies. And then you say, "L'chol ha'oisos v'hamoifsim hayad ha'chazaka," all the miracles, all the wonders, the great arm, asher asa Moshe. And then you finish with 3 words, La'enei Kol Yisrael. He did this before the eyes of the Jewish people. So Rashi goes through the evolution of events. Matan Torah, Kriyas Yamsuf, Yitzias Mitzrayim, the Makkos, the desert. What are the last words? La'enei Kol Yisrael. Rashi says, what's the end? Sheshavar haluchos la'eneihem. That he broke the luchos before their eyes. Shenemar, it says in Eikev this week, V'ashabreim la'eneichem. I broke them before your eyes. So what's la'enei Kol Yisrael? He broke the luchos. So you're finishing Torah. We have a klal to finish with something positive, right? To the point that the whole Maseches Nida, Tosfos says, and Rashi says, the Gemara finishes Masechta Nida with something that's not relevant to the Gemara, just to finish Shas on a positive note. What does Chumash finish with? The greatest catastrophe of Jewish history. B'yoyim Pakdi Upakadati, the breaking of the Luchos. Let's say Moshe had to do it, but that's the summation, like that's bigger than everything. Finish Matan Torah. He made us into a people. He gave the world divinity. The good stuff. It's not like you look, Moshe's resume was pretty rich. Imagine a surgeon. He's been a surgeon for 80 years. Yeah. Saved thousands and thousands and thousands of people's lives. And they're finally making a goodbye party for him. And somebody gets up and goes through everything he did, but says, but there's one last thing I got to tell you. Yeah? There was a patient, went into him, and he basically cut off his arms and legs. Okay. That's the Maisi at the Kratzos. Even if he had to, there was no choice but amputation. But now we understand. Now we understand. Shviras Haluchos on one level is the lowest moment. On a deeper level, it's also the greatest. Because what is Shviras Haluchos? From an external perspective, it's the end. From an internal perspective, what happens? There's a hisayrus. There's this iris of Luchos Acharonis, the Matan Torah of Baal Tshuva. And that's the reason for the Istalkus. L'chein nishbara Luchos Rishonos. Va'istalkus b'chlal hu begimel b'chinis, k'neget las moichin chachma bin adas kanal b'mosh. And remember, the breaking happens on 3 levels. Back to our mashal. You remember the student is learning and the teacher ascends. 1 level, another level, a higher level. Which with each ascent, the darkness grows stronger. Why? Because the light is coming in more and more and more. If the light wouldn't come in more, the darkness wouldn't grow stronger. It would remain status quo. But because the new light is coming in more, the teacher has to detach himself, so to speak, more and more. And the distance becomes more emphatic. And that's why in these 3 weeks, the mourning intensifies. When the In Shulchan Aruch, we have a stage of Avelis from Shivasa B'Tammuz till Rosh Chodesh. Then you have the 9 days Rosh Chodesh till Tisha. Then you have something called Shavua Shechol by Tisha B'Av, right? The week in which Tisha B'Av itself, until you have Tisha B'Av. These are 3 stages. These are the 3 weeks. So you have the first 2 weeks, it's still, not mamish, from Shavasa B'Tammuz till the end of the month. So it's basically around 30, a little less than 2 weeks is the first stage. That's like the Gilui of Chachma, of the new idea. So the teacher could still continue the Shir, even though it's with less enthusiasm, right? The second week, that's the beginning of the 9 days, still not the week of Tisha B'Av. That represents the concept of Bina, and therefore the idea is coming in even more, and therefore the teacher now will detach himself more to the point that his words may become confused because he's thinking about something else. And then you have Tisha B'Av, the end, Haisa Kalmana, she's like a widow. What's pshat? She's like a widow. The husband is gone. He's dead. But it doesn't say Haisa Almana, Haisa Ke Almana. She's like a widow. She's not a widow. He never left. The love is now stronger than it ever was. By the breaking of the Luchos, the love is stronger than it ever was. And that's the pshat. You go back to the depth, what it means, the breaking of the Luchos at the chuppah. The breaking of the Luchos at the chuppah means that your marriage may hit a point where you're going to have to bring out this truth that during the breaking, the love was the deepest it ever was. Because the reason we go through broken moments in life is only because we're supposed to be receiving a new light. And the worst thing you can do is resist it. That's the only reason a person goes through brokenness, because there's a new light that's waiting for you. That's what it is. There's a new light waiting for you. And that new light is what must enlighten and inspire the future. So you have the 3 weeks. It represents the depth of the histalkos, be'ilui acher ilui. V'hahistalkos hu sibas hagilui. But just like the gilui is sibas ha'histalkos, the histalkos is also sibas hagilui. Meaning just like the hisoirus in the source is the reason there was a histalkos, it's the histalkos that now is the reason that there could be a revelation of the new light. Shebchines Ur Chayzer, the Matan Torah Bali Tshuva. The Ur Chayzer of Matan Torah of Bali Tshuva. The Ur of Bali Tshuva is the Ur Chayzer. Remember, there's the 2 lights. There's the Ur Yashar, and then there's the Ur Chayzer, the one that bounces back because it hit a wall and it comes back. That's the Ur Chayzer of the Bal Tshuva. That the resistance, I'm resisting something I'm not letting it come in. It balances off. And it has to go into a deeper place and bring out a much deeper place in me. And because it brings out a much deeper place in me, that's what the Ur of Bali Tshuva is, the Ur Chayzer. That Ur nigla mitchila bezayin midas deza. Who gets the first revelation of it? The teacher. In the 7 midas of Zav, and Nasa nehiru l'mayla. And that's where the glow of the teacher's face is experienced. Remember back to our mashal. What happens? The teacher now got Chachma Bina Das. It now fills him up, and there's a glow. In the beginning, the student doesn't know anything, but he sees Nehiru Da'anpin. He feels comfort. What happens after Tisha B'Av? After Tisha B'Av, there's 7 weeks representing the 7 midas of Nechama, which now experience the new light that the student can see. There's a glow. And with this glow, Neshamas Yisrael find comfort. Right after Tisha B'Av is Shabbos Nachamu. Nachamu. They'll never stay in the place of Haisa Kalmana. Right away. Why? Because they feel, they don't know, but they feel that at the moment after Hest upon him, after the teacher concealed his face, they feel there's episal light on Nehiru. Episal light. They don't know what the light is. If they would know it, there would be no darkness. But they feel there's a light, and they're already feeling better. It's the extraordinary quality in Jewish history. Tisha B'Av is over, and the next Shabbos, Nachamu Ame. How did that happen? How did it happen? What's the transition? The transition is that the student has Nechama from the fact that there is a light on the Nehiru Da'anpin. The light has not yet reached him. The light has not yet been internalized, but there's a Nehiru Da'anpin. K'mashal ha'mekabel sheroyim ponim tzuhuvis shel hamashpia. Like the student who sees the glowing face of the mentor. V'lachenk sheneshamas Yisrael ha'elchem l'batei knesiyos. V'koyrim psukid nechama kumi oiri kiva oirech misnachen mem gam begolus hamar kanal b'mashal. As the Jewish people, the souls go to Shul, and they hear the words of Nechama and the Haftarah. Kumi oiri kiva oirech, which is one of the Shiva de Nechemta from Yeshaya. They feel comfort even in a bitter exile, as in the metaphor in the parable, sheyoidim neshamas Yisrael. The souls feel, they have an instinctive knowledge, ki binyin hazame hachasadim, umistame yizgala gam lamata l'neshamas debya chadash hazeh. That the construction of Zah comes from Chesed. We learned before that when Adam is put to sleep, Adam and Chava put to sleep, for him to be rebuilt, they're separated. Remember, they were one, they're separated. He gets rebuilt in the process of sleep, and that comes from Chesed. So they know that there's something from Chesed that is happening here, and it's going to be revealed, Lamata, ultimately below, to the neshamas of this world. The new light will be revealed. Okay, what happens now? So you have Shiva de Nechemta, which is the hope. What happens now? Now the teacher wants to give the new light to the student, but the student has to open himself up. You remember the two stages how a student opens himself up. First of all, he has to create an empty space, go away from all his previous paradigms, step away from everything, become mamash, an empty vessel without any intellectual or spiritual ego. But that's not enough. We remember we spoke about the students who can hear, but they can't empty themselves out. They always hear things from their own paradigms. So the first step is you have to strip yourself from everything, because if not, you're distracting yourself from the new light. But now is the second step. He has to tune in. He has to tune into the light. He has to tune into every word. Those are the two stages we spoke about at length. What happens after Shiva de Nechemta? Shiva de Nechemta goes from after Tisha B'Av till Rosh Hashanah. Now comes another two Shabbosim. The Shabbosim of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, he says, Al Yidei Zehu Achekachu Tarte de Tiyufta. Then you have the two Haftarahs of Tshuva. The first Haftarah of Tshuva, the beginning of the year, and then you have Shabbos Shuvah before Yom Kippur, which is always Shuvah Yisrael. Sho inyan Shuvah Elo, Shuvah Tata. Sho inyan Aliyas HaMalchus, Sho Neshamas Yisrael, Debiyah, Bebeis Minei Hafshatas Kanal B'Mashal. After the Shiva de Nechemta, which represents the feeling that the teacher has this glow, because he already internalized a new idea, and now we want that light. That's the Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, two states of tshuva, two haftarahs of tshuva, the lower and the higher, tshuva tata, tshuva elah, which are the two stages that the student goes through in order to open himself up or herself up for the new light. That's what Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, before, not Yom Kippur, the Shabbosim before Yom Kippur, the Shabbosim from the beginning of the new year, after the Shiva de Nechemta, the two haftarahs, till Yom Kippur, till the Shabbos before Yom Kippur, that's called Tarte de Tiyufta in Shulchan Aruch, the two of Tshuva. What is that? What's Tshuva? Tshuva is Aliyas HaMalchus. So we remember in the Kabbalistic language in the beginning of the Maamar, all the way in the beginning of the Maamar, he said that how does all of this work? He says that in the beginning that the 3 weeks before Tisha B'Av is Istalkos Gimel Moichin Chabad. Zayin the Nechemta is Galus Moichin da Atika in the 7 Midas of Zah. Tarte de Tiyufta is Aliyas HaMalchus through Tshuva Elah and Tatov and Bri Yitzir Asiyah. And then there could be Yom Kippur, Matan Torah of Luchos Achreinis, that the Moichin of Atik are revealed to the Neshamas of Biyah. Now we finally have that whole picture. And then you have Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah, which is the rejoicing of that new idea, of that new relationship. So now we understand the 3 weeks is the Gimel Moichin Chabad ascend. Zayin and Nechemta is the higher Moichin of Atik, are revealed in Zah by the Mashpia. The two Haftarahs of Tshuva is Malchus, comes up from Bri Yitzir Asiyah, which represents the student opening himself up. Yom Kippur, he gets the new idea. Now the student gets the new idea. That's Matan Torah. And Shmini Atzeres Simchas Torah is the second wedding, so to speak. It's the ultimate celebration of the new light. It's the dancing. It's the joy that comes with that new light. And beyond, the wedding and beyond. The opening up, the stripping of the recipient from everything is what triggers the deepest pleasure in the mentor. When a makabel opens himself up completely, there's nothing that can arouse in the teacher tainug on that level, to give everything. the bittul of the makabel, the complete openness, the thirst, the yearning, the openness of the student is the greatest trigger of the deepest pleasure in the mashpia. That's what Rosh Hashanah is, right? We say, Shatamlichuni aleichem. I want a relationship with you. Rosh Hashanah, the time before Yom Kippur, those are the preparations of the makabel. This leads to the Matan Torah, the new Matan Torah. The second tablets are given. And when the Neshamas Yisrael absorb it, they finally absorbed it, what happens? Nasa simcha v'tainug. Now it's time to dance. Now it's time to dance and not stop dancing. Nasa simcha v'tainug etzel ha'makablim k'moy etzel ha'mashpia. What the teacher already had after Tisha B'Av, the student has Sukkos and Shmini Atzeres. Ubi he has it even more than the teacher. Nesha etzlam hu chiddush yoser. Because by him it's a bigger chiddush. Kanal b'mashal. For the student to reach it is al deeper chiddush, so therefore in a way, his simcha is even greater than the simcha of the mashpia. That's the idea of the calendar working through. And he finishes. Let's finish. There's a parenthesis here, but I want to first learn the last paragraph of the Maamar, because the parenthesis just asks a question which is important, but I don't want to interrupt the flow. Aval al kol ponim nimtza mechuven seder ha'aftoros b'chol shana b'derech prat mima shenasa b'chlal. So now we can understand that the order of the haftoros of every year is a micro of the macro. What happens in all of history is mirrored in a smaller way in the annual calendar, in the haftoros. Ki gilui madrega. We spoke now about Luchos Rishonos, Luchos Achronos. We spoke before about Churban Bayis Rishon and Churban Bayis Sheni. Now it comes all together. Ki gilui madregas Moshiach hu matan Torah lebali tshuva. The revelation of Moshiach of Gula, that's the ultimate Matan Torah for the Bal Tshuva. In other words, the Luchos Achronos was the beginning of the taste of Geula. Just like Matan Torah was the beginning of the taste of Geula. But there are stages. Microcosm Moshiach asel asavet tzedakaya b'tiyufta. The Zohar says, what's Moshiach going to accomplish? He's going to make the tzaddikim become Balei Tshuva. That's what it says in the Zohar. Moshiach is going to take tzaddikim. Tiyufta means tshuva. Asela savet tzadikaya b'tiyufta. He's going to bring the tzaddikim to tshuva. Tzaddikim should become balei tshuva. Why is that so important? Because sometimes the greatest challenge of the tzaddik is that he's a tzaddik. He's a tzaddik. It creates a certain... We're talking about a real tzaddik. We're not talking about a fake tzaddik. We're not talking about a con artist. We're talking about a real tzaddik. But it's a tzaddik. It's a tzaddik basically. The tzaddik's life is defined by a certain complacency. I'm good. The Bal Tshuva is the truth that comes through the brokenness. The truth that comes through vulnerability. That's the Bal Tshuva. It's the truth that comes from imperfection. Right? Somebody once said, I used to like perfection, but now I like things that have cracks. They're not whole. Because that allows the light to come in. Without cracks, there's no light. So that's what Moshiach is going to accomplish. It's a whole different gilui than the gilui of Matan Torah, of tzaddikim of Matan Torah. Like we learned yesterday, that Moshiach is a new Torah, Torah Chadash. So when the gilui of Mashiach is aroused, nasa hachurban, becomes the churban showinyan histalkos, v'hu be'ilui achar ilui, and the ur goes higher, and the old ur goes away higher and higher and higher and higher. Ubesoif hagilui hu inyan piske de chiyusa, and at the end, when the gilui of the new ur is ready to come, the whole life gets interrupted. There's another version here. B'soif hagalus hu inyan piske de chiyusa, v'lachein az tegboides klippus amalek apikursus sho inyan goygo magak. At the end of Galus, you have the greatest explosion of apikursus, to deny every last vestige of hope and depth. That's what Goyg and Magog is spiritually. Like we said before, it should have been the other way. If Golus is sin, for sin, so at the end of Golus, things should become already smooth and easy. But based on our whole understanding, the deeper the concealment, it's because the light is about to come in. So Dafka at the end of Golus, the shear becomes completely interrupted. The piska, the chayusa, the chiyus gets cut off. Why? Because the teacher already is experiencing the new light in the makar. So those who are sensitive to the source, when they already experience the light of Moshiach in the highest and deepest and powerful way, for the student it often translates into the worst galus. All the light that we were familiar with, all the light that we were holding on to, all the paradigms, all the language, the vocabulary that we were comfortable with, it's all gone, it's not working. Because in the makar there's already a whole new light, the light of Moshiach, the light of Geula. Just like what happened by Mitzrayim, as explained in the whole Maamar with Moshe and Hashem, Lama Harayosa, Kel Shaddai, Kel Yud Kevavke, everything, Lama Harayosa, that it became worse at the end. Because the Golus is not Midas Hadin, the Golus is Midas Harachamim, the Golus is the new light of Matan Torah. That's why it came out by Brisbane Apsarim. And that's why at the end of Golus, when Pari goes Meshuga, and there's no hope whatsoever, and the Jews say this is the worst, Atasira. Now Asaris Adibis could come out. So the same is true in the future. So the whole process of the calendar, it's not just about the events of Luchos Achronis then. It's also Luchos Achronis by Moshiach. The whole calendar is a reflection of all of history from Brisbane Apsarim of Avraham Avinu, where he told about Galus, until the end, which is Moshiach. And it goes through these stages. Va'oz, and then Arenu Nifloyus. What's Arenu Nifloyus? Shu Atzmus Erein Soif. What emerges with Mashiach is the essence of Erein Soif. Shenifle v'nale migoydel gilu shu erich chodesh mamash adem Mashiach. This is Nifloyus. It's wondrous. It's beyond any previous revelation. It's the complete new light through Mashiach. Ume'einze b'chol shana hu shmini atzeres v'simchas Torah. A foretaste of this, a little bit of it, every year, even before the Geula, are the 2 days of Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah. Shehume'ein de la'asit. Those are the days that capture the Geula, the future Geula. Va'az, it says then, Nagila v'nismecha bach. We're going to rejoice and celebrate with you. Bach is bach mamish, you mamish. With you, bach. In other words, not just with Teva, with the world, with Boire, with Hasar Mamoris, but Bach Mamish, with you yourself, Etz Atzmus Mamish, as explained before, the Chiddush of Matan Torah, Atzmus in the Guf. And he finishes, Vidal, Vidai Lemavin, this will be enough for the person who understands. Huh? You say mitzvahs ptelis la'asid love. It's going to be one big simcha. Yeah. So you have Yom Kippur. So the days before Yom Kippur, Elul, and especially the end of Elul and beginning of Tishrei, is the student opening himself up. Yom Kippur, you get it, so to speak. Yom Kippur comes in, and Shmini Atzeres Simchas Torah is the simcha of that. It's the simcha of that deeper relationship that came after the Hester, which started already by Shivasa B'Tammuz. That's Shmini Atzeres Simchas Torah. I want to just for a moment see the question in the parentheses. He asks a very obvious question, gives a very interesting response. The paragraph at the end of Yud Zayin. V'hagam, even though you can ask a question, shebemashal v'chein benimshal l'mayla, b'isayridus moichin de matan Torah neged gilu ya'avis, hayai de shleimus moichin akoidmim kum b'bris ben apsarim kanal. V'kan begili de Moshiach shenesayre b'shas ha'chorban v'chein Yud Zayin tam l'shviras luchos ha'rishonos l'chayda einai de shleimus klal ki imai de chet ha'egel v'chein ha'chorban hayai de sinas chinam ki yadua. We have here a little disparity or a big disparity. In the mashal of the student didn't do anything wrong. He's a very good student. On the contrary, Because he's a good student, and because the idea of the teacher already reached the student, Soif Maisa, so it reaches its completion, so now we're ready for a new level, a new paradigm. Soif Maisa Machshavat Chila, as he explained before, when this idea hits the student in the spot, and it reaches its full fruition, it left the space of the teacher and went into the student, it reaches its shleimus, so now it's time for a new idea that emerges in this teacher, and therefore he stops the old hashpah. The same is true also with the Avos. Bris Ben Absarim Avram reached his completion. The Moichin HaKoidmim were complete. So now there was a Yisairis of a new Gilui, the Gilui of Matan Torah, and that's why he speaks about Golus. When we speak about the second stage, though, it's a whole different concept. How did the Churban happen? The Churban happened because of Sinas China. It's not that you're going to say that by the time of the Churban, the Jews reached their ultimate spiritual perfection. So God said, okay, so now it's time for a higher level, so let's go into Golus. There was human failure, what we call sin. Golus Mitzrayim, Taka Moshe was right, there was no sin. But the other Golus, there was sin. Sinas Chinam, the Gemara says, because of terrible hatred, baseless hatred between Jews, that's how the Golus happened. It wasn't just they reached perfection, and therefore God says there's a new light. In other words, when you read about Golus, the classic idea is there was sin. The Jews sinned, they weren't worthy of it, they were punished, they were penalized. That's what the Churban is. And here we're saying, no, it's a whole different thing. The Mashal and the Nimshal don't match. Even by the Avos, by Avram, the Golus came in a moment of heightened perfection, but not our Golus. The same is true with the Luchos. Moshe didn't break the Luchos in a vacuum. He broke the Luchos when he saw the golden calf. It's not like Shivasa B'Tammuz Moshe came down and he felt that the Jews reached their ultimate spiritual perfection. So Moshe said it's time for a new level, and therefore let's break the old. It's not exactly how it happened. It happened through crisis. It happened through failure. I get the kasha, yeah? V'tzarich loymar. So you have to say, and go one step deeper. Sha'yisayirus hoya idei chesed chinam. It's not only in every case that the student reached perfection and everything reached its perfection, so it's time now to go to the next level. Rather, there was a chesed chinam, meaning even though the student didn't reach perfection, the arousal of a new reality came because the teacher wanted to give him a whole deeper level of chesed, a whole deeper level of light. V'lachein be'emes gam b'moshel mevur sh'aydei kushi haklita shel ha'makabel v'kol shekein k'shamakshe kushis al yidei ze ma'orir moichin yoser nailam k'mevur b'makam acher k'ayidei ze marvich shmaitze k'imakshel yud beis kushis nimtze ef shaliyas is eiris moichin aydei chayzer shema'orir ha'makabel b'mashpiyah. Even in the moshel, we explained, it's not just everything is going smooth. Sometimes the student is not getting it. There's resistance, especially when he's asking questions. Like the story with Reb Shimon ben Yochai, with Reb Yochanan that we learned earlier in Rish Lakish. So it's the questions that trigger a whole new light. In other words, the student is not absorbing it. It's called kushi haklita. It's not being absorbed. It's hitting a stone wall. And that light, therefore, bounces back, goes into the teacher, and unleashes from him a new creativity. So this is not always just perfection. On the contrary, sometimes it's the inability to absorb, which challenges the teacher to give something much deeper. So what would that be then? That there's times in Jewish history that there is a difficulty to absorb. There's something in the relationship that is not happening. The Jews are not ready. They're not getting the shear. They're building a golden calf. Or there's sinas chinam. So Kevayachal Hashem is stimulated to give a whole different light in order to be able to fix that resistance. So that actually works in the mashal. So when we say that at a certain point a new light emerges, you could say it's chesed chinam. He wants to give it even though you're not ready for it. Or even on a deeper level, that it's the resistance, the inability to absorb, that challenges me to go to a deeper place. I should be able to reach you. V'lachein ef shaloymar, shaydei tfilas Moshe al achet vayichal Moshe, v'chein b'shas hachurban aydei shemasru nafsham al kedushas Hashem, Vala Beis HaMikdash, ayidei Or Choizer Hazeh, Nis'oirer Or Chodesh B'Makar HaMashpia, K'ma Inyan HaLuchos U'B'Shas HaChurban Gili Moshiach. When Moshe davens, Vayechal Moshe, or during the Churban, the Jewish people demonstrated sacrifice on Kiddush Hashem and on the Beis HaMikdash. This light that returns triggers in the source of the Mashpia a new light, like the Luchos or Moshiach by the Churban. So it's not just the concept of there's perfection. Sometimes there is the inability of the Makabel to absorb. And sometimes there is that tefillah of Moshe that came from the failure. And he fights for this relationship. He says, it's not going to stop. That brings out a deeper relationship. The fight of the Jewish people, their Mesiras Nefesh by the Churban, he says, that brings out in the Mashpia a whole new experience. Va'adirab, efshel loymar, shu inyan yoiser amuk ma'ayisayrdus shal shleimus amoichin hakoidmim, aydei sheneklotem bekli amekabel aydei dibur amashpia. It's possible that this is even much deeper than the arousal that comes from the perfection of the previous idea, because the Makabel absorbed it. Because that's all the smooth transition. The student absorbs it through the words of the Mashpia, and now that he absorbs it, it's time to go to the next level. That's taka one that comes out. But there's a much deeper that may come out from the fact that it's not absorbed, that it hits a stone wall. It's much deeper maybe than he says F Shaloima, that it's even deeper than this iris that comes from absorbing from the Shleimus. That taka by Brisbane Absarim. But here there's something else, this iris that comes from the Ur Chayzer. The Ur did not come in. The Ur did not come in. And there was a failure. There was the sin. And Moshe had to daven, Vayechal Moshe. And there was the Mesiras Nefesh for this relationship after the Churban Beis HaMikdash. That may bring out even the deeper the of Moshiach, which is even deeper than the first of Matan Torah that happens by Brisbane Absarim. In other words, over there, it's a smooth transition. And here the Chayzer is deeper because it has to unleash something much more powerful because it didn't go in. And because it didn't go in, so therefore it creates even something in deeper. V'kanal b'mashal, as in the mashal, v'tzarich iyun. This needs iyun, this needs insight, this needs explanation. Which also includes the idea, which is already very, very subtle and very sensitive, that this is a lot in the. You have it a few places in Chassidus, a little hinted. In the works of Reb Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin, he likes to elaborate on this, and that is that sometimes the sin happens on two levels, on a conscious level and an unconscious level, right? On a conscious level, I have choice. I made a choice and I made a bad choice. I have to do tshuva. There's also an unconscious level. And on the unconscious level, I was preparing for the new light that's going to come through tshuva. The new light that's going to come through tshuva, that's what I'm really looking for. There's a poem from Reb Shlomo ibn Gabirol, one of the Spanish Jewish poets. So he writes about God, he says, I run away from you to get closer to you. I run away from you to get closer to you. So a Jew goes off the beaten track. This is not the derech. You went on the wrong derech. On one level, you're going on the wrong path. On another level, you're carving out a new path to Hashem. Because lo yidach mimenu nidach, nobody's going to be lost. So ultimately, you're going to transform the darkness into light. So from this path that's off the beaten track, you're really carving out a new path. So on some level, there's a deeper level of sin, which is coming from the deep awareness that I want the deeper light. And the deeper light, the Matan Torah of the Luchos then, is what prompts it. So that's a whole other dimension that may also be added here to understand the whole picture, to understand the whole process. I don't want to say we concluded the Maamar. I don't think we concluded the Maamar, but we finished reading the Maamar, that's for sure.
Next week, Monday you're here?
Oh, I'm going away. Next week there's no shiurim, a whole week. I'm going to be here, not be here, on and off, and the next week also not. Bein Hazmanim. We have Bein Hazmanim. Okay?
That's this whole thing.
I'll look next week and the week after. If you could post it on the... I have to go to Chicago. My kids are going to yeshiva this. I'm going there for a few days. So that's the next week. Next week there's no shurim, and the week after. 2 weeks. Yeah. And then the next week we'll start. Be'ezer Hashem bli neder.
Go away then. It's a great time to do it. September 9th.
Everybody should have a wonderful Shabbos.
Shabbos is here? What plays into what?
What happened is that you say it's not fair. Or you say it's not fair. Somebody is a tzaddik, he doesn't get all these mitzvahs. Somebody is a balaveda, suddenly all these avedas become mitzvahs. Yeah? The Marsha says, Lo yechote nisker. Doesn't make sense. Person lives his life nicely, nishgut. He doesn't get all these mitzvahs. A guy sins his whole life, and suddenly every aveda is a mitzvah. Every aveda becomes a mitzvah. It's not fair, right? No, so how do you understand this? Perek Zayin. Perek Zayin, yeah. Tanya Perek,
You don't put a Zion, you're talking about Zachis, you're talking about Tshuva.
Yeah, don't worry about Tshuva, but the Alter Rebbe answers.
For what?
This thing is only regards to Tshuva. He gets a bigger Tshuva.
Where does Alter?
Tshuva?
Tanya Perek Zayin. This is your son?
Yeah, you don't want the regular Zachis.
Tanya Perek Zayin, the Alter Rebbe says that what? That Zdayin is not like a Zachis because through the Chayshach he experiences a different Av, a different Simayim.
He's saying Tshuva, he's saying the same word. Tshuva gets a higher Tshuva, different Tshuva because of that, but he goes much higher. Because of the Tshuva, yeah.
Person who failed, who was for days without water, right? He says, Sama nafshay, right? Be'eretz tziyav etzalmavis. It's a different samalachon nafshay that you don't have in a different situation. In other words, it's the very sin that contributes to the Avos Hashem because of the negativity.
Back to a higher, it's all different terms.
Yeah. So now a person will say, but you never say that because if you really care about Hashem, you do what Hashem wants. He doesn't want you to sin. He doesn't want you. But if a person did, right? So there's a different oid is needed. The Luchos Acharonis was a different oid. You needed a higher oid in order to reach this person.
Because they sinned, obviously.
Yeah.
In theory, if still would not happened, we'd never needed it. And we would never have gotten it because Taka would have never needed it. So it only came down, the sin brought about obviously this.
So that's what we said in the parentheses, that the sin creates an Ur Chayzer, that the things are not being absorbed, right? So it brings out an Ur Chayzer, the kashas of the makabel, the kasha. Yeah. So that the resistance, yeah, is you need to give, you try to communicate to your child, he's not getting it. So you need to go to a deeper place inside of you to be able to give it to him. Okay? So the Shviras HaLuchos happens because I want to give him Luchos Acharonis. Because I want to give him Luchos Acharonis, I have to break the first Luchos.
That's where I'm not perfectly getting. The Shviras HaLuchos happen that I wanted to give, or because they've sinned and they're not getting it, so I have to make higher. It's a big difference. Because it's either Hashem wanted it, therefore in a sense they had to sin, so I'll give it to you, or it's like you sin, so in order for me to give it to you, I have to go deeper.
So that's what he says both. He says there's an union of chesed chinam.
Right, so that's the thing.
I want to give it to you.
Having that both
So the chesed chinam, v'loy mitzat shleimus the moichin, even though you're not it's not like you deserve it, right? And even in the mashal, we see this nekuda, that it's not lav dafka from shleimus, it's coming from Ur Chayzer. And especially, and especially the Ur Chayzer that comes after the chet, the Tfilas Moshe Vayichal Moshe, or the Mesiris Nefesh, he says that's even mo'ered a deeper Ur. That fighting for the relationship, so to speak.
So there is that nakuda that even a person who wasn't perfect, I still want to give him more.
Well, by Avram Avinu, he says it earlier in the Maamar, that he reached his perfection by Bris Ben Absarim, Soif Maisa, so now there was a Hisayrus of yet a higher light. But at the end of this parenthesis, he says that this is even deeper than that, because that's just the Hisayrus that comes from Shleimus. But the Hisayrus that comes from not Shleimus is a much deeper one.
So you have to go deeper, like you said.
You understand what I'm saying? Because it's a darkness that unleashes the deepest place. You understand? You're teaching a student and everything is perfect, and now you want to go deeper, but it doesn't come to the depth that comes from the tension, and the real reason for all of this is because the ultimate kavanah of the Bria, the ultimate kavanah of Atzmos in creating the world was to be mahapech choshech. So choshech has something that reaches the deepest place. You understand? The kavanah of the Bria wasn't there was. The kavanah of the Bria was the transformation. So when there's the darkness, it touches, so to speak, the mashpia in the deepest place to be able to transform it. That's why this is a much deeper than the that comes from Shleimus. Tamevin. Huh? Yeah. Westchester? By Rabbi Heller? You're asking a good question. If you have mikra, so you already have to have, you have the 630 mitzvahs, right? So what's pshat? You don't have halacha mishnah. The answer is bekitzer. They would have had the whole Torah, but they would have had it the way it's in mikra. Meaning, all the pratim would be part of the klal. Now, every union in Torah Shabbal Peh, you have to harav duruch, and there's machlokes and ibayis and debates, and you have to figure everything out. Pshat they would have mikra is that the whole Torah would operate on the level of mikra, on the level of klal.
Like Talmud Yerushalmi, like simple? Like Talmud Yerushalmi?
Relative. Talmud Yerushalmi is also part of it. It's not so simple. Yeah. But it would be, you understand, you would know all the mitzvahs, but it would be like a clarity. Which is like a tzaddik. What's Torah Shabbal Peh? Torah Shabbal Peh legabe Torah Shabbat is a bal tshuva legabe a tzaddik. You learn Gemara, yeah? The Gemara says, okay, why the Mishnah says this? Should have said this. Oh, so you have to say this. No, this is wrong. But I'll prove you're wrong. What is that? That's tshuva. What is tshuva? Tshuva is you were going one way. Oh yeah, I made a mistake. So I have to reinvent it. But now I reject it. And you don't stop. You understand? That process you don't have in Torah Shabbat. A question and a tiyufta, and then it's completely refuted, and it can't be salvaged, and this svar has to be thrown out forever, but this could be maintained. You understand? That's what tshuva. What's tshuva? I'm following a path. No, I made a mistake. I have to reinvent it. Now I have to turn around. Now I have to redo my whole life. You understand? What tshuva is in life, Gemara is in Torah. Right? That's why it says in Zohar that Torah Shabbal Peh is Eitz Hada'ah. Right? It's the bitter of Eitz Hada'ah's Toivera. And Kabbalah is called Eitz HaChayim. A Geras HaKodesh Siman Chavav, a whole chapter. You ever learned the Geras HaKodesh Siman Chavav?
I read it.
Isa B'rai Mehemna Maskilim Yazidu B'Zoyra Rakia. The whole long thing. So if there would be no Chet HaEgel, they would have the whole Mikra and Sefer Yeshua. Of course they would have the mitzvahs. It's not like they wouldn't have mitzvahs. If they had mitzvahs, you need Mishnah and Gemara. But the pshat is the whole Mishnah and Gemara, it would be Or Yashar, it would be clear. You would just have the klal of Torah. It's the Chet HaEgel that created the need for a different Torah. On one level, it's much harder now. You have to work. On another level, it's a much deeper Ur. The Ur that you reach through Torah Shabbal Peh, the Ur Chayzer, is the Ur of Tshuva. It's the Ur of Talumas Chachma. It's Keflayim L'Toshiyah. It's a whole different Ur.
Why was that only in Gala after they wrote the Mishnah? The first Machleksim was about Slichot, you know? Rashi says.
Yeah.
The first Machleksim William, the first Machleksim was then.
Yeah.
So we don't have all these debates. All this Gemara only came down so much later. So everything is after Chet HaEgel. Anything is after like the from my decisions. That's what Moshe is taking.
Late reaction.
It's a good question. You're saying that Luchos Acharonos. Yeah. You're saying till they got to Mishnah, took the end of Bayesheni. The answer is, you're asking good questions. The answer is, when you say Luchos Acharonos came with Halacha Mishnah, God doesn't mean it was given right then. It means it unleashed a force in the world that would produce Halacha Mishnah Agad. You understand? That's the word. In the right time. Luchos Rishonos would have been one type of life. Luchos Shniyos brought into Klal Yisrael, into the world, a different type of Ur. Why? I sent an essay for this Shabbos, so it's going to be sent soon. It came already? It's called the chips of your life. What's the title?
Use it a lot of times,
It's called the chips of your life will make you rich.
Yeah. It says in Gemara in Nedarim.
Catchy.
Catchy,
yeah.
It's very deep. It says that Moshe became rich from the psoilus of the Luchos. You know them? Yeah? Hashem said, carve out, take sapphire, so he carved it out. So there's all the leftovers, the junk, the chips, but it was good stuff. It was sapphire, he became rich. So Chassidus says, distasteful. You want Moshe to be rich. It's like a real estate deal here. You ask Moshe to make luchos, and by the way, there's a cut for you. You want him to be rich, be rich. Yeah, there's a word from the Rebbe Rashab, the Maamar, Tofresh Samach Ches. He says a hafla de kavart. He says, Luchos Rishonos didn't have psilas. Luchos Rishonos didn't have refuse because it was made in heaven. Luchos Shniyos has psilas. Because what's Luchos Shniyos? Luchos Shniyos is the luchos that are created through failure. Right? It's psilas. Luchos Shniyos is man-made, it's not God-made. Tshuva is man-made, it's not God-made. Luchos Rishonos is God-made. That's what a tzaddik is. A tzaddik just listens to Hashem. The Baal Tshuva is somebody who needs to reinvent himself. Hashem has been eclipsed. You understand? It's man-made. It's your own initiative. It's your own creativity. That's Torah Shabbal Peh. It's Ur Chayzer. It comes Malmata L'mayla. Right? So as a result of that, there's psoilus. Yeah, that psoilus you would think is horrible. He says, no, this was gave Moshe the deepest richness. The deepest ashiris comes from this psoilus. Luchos Rishonos didn't bring into the world psoilus. It brought in a world that's beyond psoilus. Before that there was psoilus, zuhama. It says from Eitz Hadas there was zuhama, filth. Matan Torah, Paska zuhama, and the Gemara says in Shabbos. But by Chet HaEgel it all came back. The psoilus of the world, the cover-up came back, the klippa came back. So Luchos Acharonos has psoilus. And it's the transformation of the psoilus into divine tablets. That's the chiddush of Luchos Acharonos. So it brought into the world a different paradigm of Judaism. The paradigm of Yiddishkeit of Luchos Rishonos is not the same like Luchos Acharonos. Luchos Rishonos is one b'china, Luchos is a different b'china. Luchos Acharonos is man-made. Luchos Acharonos has psoilus. Luchos Acharonos is going to bring halacha, mishnah, agada in the right time. But it's a different way of thinking. It's like right brain, left brain, klal, prat, milmayla, milmato, Talmud Bavli, Talmud Yerushalmi, Ur Yosher, Ur Chayzer, Tzadikim, Bali Tshuva. It's a different...
Huh? Male, female also have those two things? Or no,
I don't know. That I don't know. That's not part of the equation. Males and females both are Tzadikim and Bali Tshuva. That's not... But it's the concept of Luchos Rishonos, everything is clear. Everything is klal. You don't have to work through the pratim because they're not detached. Luchos Shniyos is a whole different paradigm. So all of Yiddishkeit was affected by it. You understand?
And then Yom Kippur, why don't we say anything like Mount Terror and then Shavuos?
Why a whole Yom Kippur we don't mention this?
And then Shavuos we say Tikkun, let's see all the Mishnayos. Shall we say Mikra?
It's a gute Kapella. It's not a gute Kapella.
Except for the Zaidi.
You should call it.
Ist verstanden?
Oh.
Ah?
What's it?
Ich soll mit Meuchel sein, das meint nicht, dass er versteht. Ich habe gefragt, ob er versteht.
Good gesagt. Inspired.
Huh? You want to know why Yom Kippur we don't mention this? Why the whole Yom Kippur we don't mention that it's Matan Torah of Luchos Achronos?
Shavuos, like the same Mishnayos in Isaiah and all of these. They didn't come then.
We actually do mention it.
The Gemara says in Tainus, Chavav, Yom Kippur is Yom Shenitnu by Luchos Achronos. Yom Chasunos is Matan Torah, is Yom Kippur Shenitnu by Luchos Achronos. It's a Gemara in Tainus, the end of Tainus.
I think that's part of the Mishnah.
Good, interesting order. Well, that's the question he's asking in parentheses. We always say that Galus is a kapara for sins, right? And here we're saying that the Galus has a whole other dimension, that the pnimius of Galus is really Hashem wants to reveal a new light, not just atone for sins. And how does it fit with the mashal? In the mashal, it's the completion of the student that creates the Galus. Or Bris Ben Hapsarim, it's the Shleimus of Avram that creates the Haftach of Galus. But the Churban Habayis happened because of sin aschina, because of sin. Because of failure, that's what caused it, not because of Shleimus. The same is true with the breaking of the Luchos. It happened because of the Chet HaEgel. It didn't happen because the Jews were complete. It's the breaking of the Luchos that was caused by the sin. So that's what he's trying to explain here. So one of the ideas that he's saying is this Nakuda, that when we speak about sin and we speak about kapara of sin, of course it's true that the Galus came because of sin and the Galus came because of kapara of sin. But let's understand what that really means. And that's the great insight here. He says, V'tzarech iyun, it's a very serious insight. And that's the idea that in the Mashal we said that what forces the teacher to bring out the new insight? It's the questions of the Talmud. In other words, Talmud says, I don't understand you. I want to understand you, but I don't get you. The relationship is lacking. The shia that the teacher prepared is not successful. It's not going into the student. So the student is saying, this doesn't make sense. And when the teacher sees that, and he hears those questions, it challenges him. It's the Chayzer, right? We learned it earlier in the Maamar. It's the Chayzer that unleashes a whole new insight. Okay, so now I want to ask you a question. You have a student, he's sitting in class, and the teacher is giving a share, and the student says, I don't understand anything. Right? So you could say, oh, this student is a bad student, he's a lousy student, he's not interested in anything, there's no hope. But that's not what a real teacher does. What the real teacher does is, he says, let me go deeper into me and let me understand. Maybe there's something new that I have to give. Maybe I have to change my language. It's also true emotionally. Let's say I'm trying to communicate and he's not picking it up or she's not picking it up. So there's all these questions. There is this resistance. It's called the kushi haklita, the difficulty to absorb. My message is hitting it's hitting a stone wall. So I have to go deeper into myself and ask myself, maybe I'm looking at this wrongly. Maybe I have to reinvent myself. Maybe I need a whole new air that this person needs. So what's really happening is the student is begging. On one level, the student is like, there's no relationship here. Like, I don't know what you're saying. I don't understand what you're saying. I don't care for what you're saying, right? Your child says, I don't care what you're telling me. But that's on the surface. That's externally. What he's really saying is, I need this relationship to be so much deeper. Let me give another example. In a marriage, sometimes a woman creates a lot of resistance to her husband, right? She's upset at him, she screams at him, she chastises him, she gives him musar. She really really is triggering him. So on one level, you say, oh, she's not interested in him. She wants a divorce. She wants out. No. That's chitzonius. The pnimius is the opposite. She's saying, like, I'm expecting so much. I want so much. I want a deeper relationship. I want a more authentic relationship. I need to feel you more. I need to feel your presence. I need to feel your love. I'm hurt because the relationship is not working for me. If she really wouldn't care, she also wouldn't be upset. There's no hope. There's no expectation. I'm so attached, and I need that attachment, and I'm not feeling that attachment, and that's what's causing the pain. So what does the husband have to do? He's not supposed to run away at this time. On the contrary, he has to be able to go into a deeper place and really confront his own darkness and his own inadequacies and be able to give her so much more. So if you want to call her the makabel and he's the mashpia, like we spoke earlier in the shir, right? Man mashpia, woman makabel. It's the child, it's the student, not the child, it's the student, it's the makabel who's resisting the oir because he's searching for a much deeper oir. So now let's go to the Jewish people. Wow. The Jewish people are sinning. What does it mean they're sinning? The oir of Hashem didn't penetrate them. It didn't absorb. Hashem spoke at Matan Torah and I didn't get it. I'm sinning. I'm betraying you. I'm telling Hashem, I don't get it. It's not sitting well with me. It's not affecting me. It's not transforming me. On one level, it's like we're running away from God. On another level, no, we're running closer. I'm looking for a deeper relationship. I'm looking for a deeper message. I'm looking for a deeper light. So on that level, what is the sin? The sin is really, I want an ava that's so much deeper. I want to feel so much closer to you. It's not the regular echtava ashav, I'm sinning because I don't care and then I'll do tshuva. No, the sin on a deeper level, maybe unconscious, is prompted by the search for the light of geula. So what was the churban? The churban was because of the sin. What's the sin? The sin. I'm looking for the real kiruv. I'm looking for that new light. So Hashem says, I'm giving you that light. I'm giving you that light. That's the light of Gula. That's the light of Moshiach. So it's the student who says, I don't get your message. So the teacher now has to find within himself new oisias, a new model, a new paradigm, a new light that this should be able to go into the student. This is called Luchos achronis. This is the Matan Torah for the Baal Tshuva. It's not the Matan Torah for the Tzaddikim. You want Matan Torah for the Baal Tshuva, you need Talumas Chachma, you need Keflayim L'Teshiyah, you need the depth of the depth of the depth, you need Maamar, the Ein Sof itself. I need the deepest infinity. That's the Matan Torah for the Baal Tshuva. You're not going to be able to communicate Torah to the Baal Tshuva, to the Jew who built the Egel. Again, back to the woman. She's saying, I'm so upset. I'm so hurt by this relationship. She's really pleading with her husband to find within himself a new dimension in his personality, maybe to reinvent himself, through which he could connect to her, through which he can give her love, through which he could fill that void, through which she could feel the trust, the support. That's a whole different perspective. That's the kushi haklita. That's the what is it? Kushi haklita. The difficulty to absorb, to digest. The student is screaming, Rebbe, your message is not affecting me. Your message is not going into me. I don't get it. The Jew, by sinning, what is he telling Hashem? Your message is not going into me. That creates an or choizer. That's the light that comes back from the frustration, from the inability to go into me. Kevayachal, prompting Hashem, so to speak, kevayachal, to find a new light. What's the new light? Luchos achronis. The new light is the light of the geula. For that, the old light has to go away. The luchos have to break, the first luchos. So now he could find a real connection with the student. Why am I sinning? I'm sinning because I don't feel connected to you. Why is this woman so upset? Why is she going somewhere else? Because she doesn't feel connected. What am I looking for? I'm looking for a real connection. I'm looking for a deeper connection. I'm going to give you another example. There's a child who rebels against his father, right? And he tells him, you're not my father. You're not my father anymore. You can hear two things here. You can hear, wow, what a spoiled brat. This is disgusting. This is not nice. He's arrogant. It's horrible. And you're right. The words are really, really painful. If you look deeper, he may be saying something else. He may be saying, I need a new father. I need a deeper father. I need a more authentic father. Father, I need to feel you more. I'm not feeling you. That's why I say you're not my father. It's basically a way of dealing with my own pain. The words that he's saying are not nice. They're not nice. That's true. He has to apologize. But the message is a very, very deep message. And what's the worst thing the father does is, I'm not your father? I'm not your father? Really? You're not my child. Have a wonderful way. No. Have a wonderful day. No, he needs you more than anything else. And sometimes getting upset, sometimes the fact that you say, how could you say such a thing? How could you say, I'm not your father? I gave my blood for you. Sometimes that helps because he may think that his father is detached. And the fact that he sees that his father is triggered, his father is so hurt, his father is so upset, he says, oh wow, my father cares. Suddenly he feels connected. Sometimes the toichich itself, the father getting upset, that itself is the new light. Sometimes that itself is the new light, right? The einish, the toichich, that itself is the new light. That's what he felt. So the point here is that the sins that we're talking about, there's the external dimension of it, which is, of course, always not good, it's bad, it's a chet. And then there's the deeper dimension. I'm looking for Luchos Acharonis. I'm looking for Moshiach. I'm looking for Geula. And that Or Chayzer is what creates the new Or, the Or of Geula. Then there's the second Or Chayzer that he discusses. That's the Vayichal Moshe. That after the Chet HaEgel, there's the Tefillah, the yearning for renewal, the Mesiris Nefesh for the Beis HaMikdash. That's the Or Chayzer. In other words, there is the difficulty of absorption because of the estrangement, and that creates one Or Chayzer. And then there's the desire that I want to fight for this relationship, and that creates a unbelievably deep Or Chayzer, which triggers in the source tremendous new revelations. Right.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.